Right. Welcome, James, or as I like to call you, Goldbeard. Thanks for coming and joining me.
I love you. You're seriously the only person that still calls me that, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But as you can see, I'm a bit more silver than
Silver
gold.
beard now. Yeah. Well, you're more like Gold Tash. You're still Gold Tash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Move, Breathe, Live with me. And today I am super stoked to welcome someone I've known for about 9 years now, I think it is. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and say who you are and maybe how we met and whatever else, and then we can and maybe where Goldbeard comes from, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, sure. My name is James Hyland. I'm a movement coach, a holistic lifestyle coach. I just kind of help people get back to what they consider healthy. My main objective is to reconnect people to nature, and that's kind of how I direct my process. So nature is the balancer of all, and if we can sort of reestablish our connection there, then what we consider healthy becomes pretty easy. And there's a lot of cool benchmarks that you can use just in daily life. So that's what I do. I met Wibbs years ago, actually as a snowboard coach. I still do a lot of snowboard coaching. And he was in Fernie, where I used to live. And one of the most rad dudes that I met during this process. It was an amazing process, just getting to meet tons and tons of people from around the world. Inspiring individuals that just wanted to let their life go and then and snowboard with me, which was like, you guys are crazy. But yeah, man, that was an epic time of life. And that's where I met you.
Pretty simple times. Like, I don't know, I guess you and Chrissy were married then? You weren't married, were you, when we met? I think you got married afterwards, but you had obviously been together for a while, but even at that time. But yeah, kind of not quite the free and single, but essentially kind of young, just simple, let's go drink and shred and do it all again tomorrow, and get our
and then, ironically the drinking and shredding is what pushed me into the wellness sector, because you can only be pedal to the floor for so long, and then you're like, whoa, how do I sustain my passion, which is snowboarding? It's not drinking. So I got to do something different here, and it sort of segued me. Luckily, my amazing wife Chrissy, who you just mentioned, she was kind of a catalyst as well. She was a holistic nutritionist and stuff, and it was like, yeah, you could do this and this. And I was like,
I was definitely going to bring that up as well, just because I know I've been watching some of her posts and stuff, and I'll put her in the show notes as well, because I definitely think should be worth people checking out as well. But she was just done a make your own kimchi. She's got like a bit of a thing going on, and sauerkraut kind of workshop and whatever else. And it's just kind of cool that all that kind of stuff, which I don't know, most people, including us, you go to and spend probably excessive amounts of money buying something which is probably quite easy just to self-ferment and make at home. So I'll stick her in, because Chrissy's well worth checking out for everyone to have a look at as well. So cool. So I kind of want to, and by the way, so just on the brief story of why I call James Goldbeard. So I can remember us sitting in the bar in the Elk, and obviously there was quite a few beers had been consumed, and potentially shots as well. And I just remember, I don't know why you basically said something along the lines of, I've always just wanted everyone to call me Goldbeard. Like, I've always wanted everyone to call me Goldbeard, but no one's ever done it. So then, I know me and Stu, we still refer to you as Goldbeard, so it's kind of like it's always just stuck. I mean, yeah, of course. I mean,
it stuck for a long time for a lot of people, actually. And the funny thing is, when you have a couple of drinks, you let your guard down. And Goldbeard, I don't even know if I've told you this story, but Goldbeard was my dwarf paladin when I played World of Warcraft years and years and years ago. And so I guess I just really wanted to be actually Goldbeard. So I convinced you lads to take up the mantle and move me forward into my true self.
And at the end of the day, Stu and I were pretty much, you know, I'd like to say we were pretty influential on a whole bunch of drunkards in that town anyway. So if we started shouting your name as Goldbeard, everyone else would as well. So,
yeah.
So cool. I kind of want to really dive in with you into, I guess, some of the work we've previously, you were kind of getting me to do a few years ago. And just generally how your thoughts and feelings around movement have kind of gone from, well, you know, essentially let's push our body, break it, and like we're young enough that we can bounce back essentially, and then all of a sudden you kind of come out of that. But you know, as you say, getting in touch with nature has been a big one for you. And I think you were pretty much maybe the first person who introduced me to like the MoveNat world, because I think even when, maybe it was just after I finished hanging out with you, but you were kind of definitely posting a lot about like natural movement, like the MoveNat thing, because I think you did your level 2 pretty quick around that time or something. But yeah, just kind of go into that side of the world and like how, in your eyes, if you can, like the nature is kind of the big part of this.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, MoveNat, you've mentioned a couple of times. It was hugely influential because it was the first time in my life. I always knew that working out or doing things that challenge your body was good for you, but I could never get into the gym because it felt forced. It felt sterile. It felt like somewhere where I had to be. I didn't want to be there necessarily, but I had to be there because I know it's good for me, right? And so I found MoveNat, and it sort of it combined the reason why I love snowboarding so much, or anything that I do outside. I'm constantly outside. I spend most of my time outside. I've been building houses, I basically just live outside, and then I come inside to sleep. Yeah. So they had put together this platform that was like, hey, you know what? We can do all of the great things that the gym can do, but we can add another layer of, we're doing it in a natural environment. We're not doing it on a perfectly level surface. We're doing it in coordination with nature, not in an sort of an environment that's divorced of any obstacle, like natural obstacle. So for me, I was just like, whoa, that's cool. And I remember listening to Daniel Vitalis's podcast and hearing Erwan talk about MoveNat, and I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Like, that's me. That has to be. So I went and did the level 1 and went to Vancouver and did that, and it was just like, whoa, this is totally me, because it was kind of like a parkour-y thing, and I did a lot of martial arts and stuff, and I played around a lot as a kid, just skateboarding and snowboarding, and I always liked flipping and rolling and jumping, and it just combined all of that aspect, and then put it in this place, this environment, our natural environment, that really challenges you, that really kind of grounds you, and not to sound hippie, but it literally does. Like,
with the ground,
you know, like get your shoes off. Yeah, man, get your shoes off, touch the earth, be a part of what is essentially sustaining your life. You know, and be a part of it, not try to beat it, not try to like push it away, or just like immerse yourself into what is life-giving. And it like energized me like nothing I'd ever experienced. I was like, oh wow. And so like level 2 came straight after that. And yeah, man, it was early times in MoveNat, and it was life-changing for sure, that whole sect.
Yeah, man. It's like, I mean, I've not actually done, because I'm probably a little bit like you. I hate the gym. Like, I kind of, you know, people like it, cool, like go crazy, but I hated the forced nature of everything being very linear, everything being singular plane, like, and even before I kind of got into really where I am with all my movement therapy and understanding, you know, complete, whole body, three-dimensional. It was just kind of like, well, if I'm crawling across a big log, which is, uneven and you feel so much more within your body. And yeah, it kind of immediately grabbed me as kind of like, well, this is kind of fun. I can do it when I'm out for a walk. And, I hate the idea of, oh, I've got to put an hour and a half aside to go to the gym. Whereas actually I was outside and I could just suddenly go, I'm going to go and I'm walking the dogs. And so I can do breath work while I'm walking the dogs. And then, oh, there's a freaking well good branch here. I'm going to jump up on that and just climb up it and get a little bit of exercise. And it kind of felt like I didn't have to do an hour of exercise 3 times a week. I was just doing 5-10 minutes here and there. And it was, yeah, I don't know. That to me is just such a nice way to look at doing it, movement and exercise, the difference between movement and exercise.
It's a balance, right? And that's what you asked me what the nature aspect of things is it's the ultimate balancer. It's the equalizer of all things. To me, if I put myself in a natural environment, even if I'm just walking through the forest, there's lots of sensory things that are happening, right? And I'm not necessarily doing a quote unquote workout, but my senses are heightening, my smell, my sight, and particularly if you're barefoot, you're getting a ton of senses through the feet. You're getting a breeze on your skin, and that you just don't get that in the gym.
Song,
exactly.
So many different I love that. That's it is so true. And I don't know. Again, I like to say I'm lazy because I hate the idea of like putting time aside to go and do a workout, whereas I just prefer fitting it in around my life. And I just think it's kind of, again, I like to kind of bring up the idea or the difference with people between exercise and movement, and how like exercise is such a modern thing, really, for what, even if you went 2,500 years ago or 3,000 years ago to like the Greeks, and when they put time aside to suddenly, still such a short amount of time compared to what our bodies have been evolving to get to this stage. And really before that it was just squat. Can you actually you'd squat down to pick stuff up? You would, I don't know, I just think movement is such a nicer way of looking at life.
Well, sure. I mean, you're hunting and gathering before that, right? And the whole hunting and gathering thing, if you can't get down, you can't move through the bush, you're not a very good hunter. Which, the whole thing about just the outside exercise element is that and using our elements or our environment to make ourselves better, is that it's just like it keeps going layer after layer after layer. It doesn't just stop at like making muscle, right? Like that's a byproduct of everything else that happens, because you become more aware of what you're consuming, what your quality of water, what kind of food, the information that you even choose to take in. And in a time like this, we have to have, like if you're not getting outside and giving your mind the space to sort of develop in its place of origin, like we don't come from a box inside that's climate controlled. We should be exposing ourselves to the places that are familiar to our genes, to where we come from, right? So it makes it a lot easier to sift through the bullshit that's out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I have this thing of, I know you've been into it for a while, but like go into that idea of like the climate controlled temperature and stuff. But we had, not that it was anything close to the kind of weather you would have, but during February we had some snow and ice here, and I was like making the most of like the free ice pool down the road of like a flooded field. I was cutting holes in the ice and jumping in, and the locals,
you're fucking nuts.
Could not understand it. Everyone's like, you're the guy who got in that field in your pants, aren't you? But even without that, let's say, but actually having this kind of balance of actually getting cold and getting hot, being outside when it's not really warm, and being outside and perhaps not completely layering up the whole time. And so allowing your body to feel more than like what we do, because I know that the amount of people, as soon as it starts getting slightly chilly, and again, like we're in England, so for any of you who have not been to Canada in the winter, that place is fucking cold. Like compared to England, however cold you think England is, Canada's definitely colder in the winter. But you get really soft. Do you know what I mean? People's ability to cope with a cold breeze or a cold day, they immediately have to put lots of layers on. And since I've been doing a lot of cold showers, cold baths, cold swims, cold whatever, the cold doesn't bother you in the same way. Like you build a resilience.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like I've heard it's very popular in the wellness sector to build resilience and build, you know, and you're constantly trying to build against these things. But I find for me now, it's become more of an embrace. I'm not even like, it's not necessarily that I'm trying to beat it or be stronger to get around it. It's just like, I'm just cool with it because it is what it is. It's actually enjoyable to be cold because that is what's happening right now. So it's just kind of like that, I don't know, mindfulness in the present moment. I'm okay with it. It's good. I like the fact that my body's not reacting negatively to it, you know, like I'm not like, oh God, I gotta get inside. Because nobody likes being cold. Everybody says, oh, James, you like being cold. I'm like, I fucking hate being cold, man. Nobody likes being cold. It's not enjoyable, but you can enjoy it if you sort of given yourself the space to go, you know what, it's okay.
And also and also with that, like the time to adapt. And I, you know, and I know certainly, I'm sure you probably feel the same with some of the when you're coaching movement and stuff. I don't know if you do, but I'm sure you will. But like, how many people want to do something now, essentially? You know, I want to be able to, and you can almost make yourself do something now. So whether it be like, you know, muscle ups, whatever else. But do you know what I mean? There's a lot of muscular or tissue work that needs to go into adapting to do that exercise. And you know, I've just started getting into climbing more recently again, first time since I was in Canada. But like, you know, there's people who are just like, they're new to it, and you can just see them going at it. And you can't, and whereas I've just been a bit like, I know, I can tell my hands, my forearms are just screaming.
Out.
Yeah, man. And it's just like, right, I'm done. I'll come back again. And, you know, again, that cold thing, given your body and your mind time to adapt is kind of key. And again, one of the things I like to do with myself, and I try to pass on to some of my clients, is give it time, like allow adaptation, like don't force something for the sake of forcing it.
Well, that's a great thing about the natural environment, again, is that it's far more difficult to try to force something out there because there's real consequence, right? I find it, if you take somebody into a natural environment and there's say there's a bunch of rocks to lift here, people are not going to automatically go for the biggest rock. Right. And when they're in the gym, maybe they're going to go for the biggest weight, and they're going to, because they're comfortable and everything's flat. They know that they got their belt on, they can do this. But when you go out and you put the ground just slightly off kilter, and you put a bunch of boulders that you can't actually really get a great grip on, it's like a natural downshift. You have to be like, you know what, and have to take this slow. And that's what the cold does, and that's what the sauna, the hot does. And those are the things that I had to learn, and I'm still learning how to slow down. I'm not good at slowing down. Like, I'm the first person to admit, like, I'm pretty full on. People that know me think I'm a little bit intense. And that's just me. But putting myself into those environments has just gone, hey, you know what, man? You can chill out. You can take a moment. You need to, actually. And if you don't, things could go really wrong here.
Yeah, man, for sure. Yes, definitely. And so with that kind of, as far as, with your movement side of things, kind of coming out of that, like obviously I got in touch with you about, as I say, I just saw it. It's actually 3 years ago, kind of today, and obviously you've got your t-shirt on there anyway. So kind of your elemental body kind of work. You know, have you found, because I know you and I think it's you and your brother did quite a lot of work in around like the Spartan races and like the obstacle, obstacle stuff. So have you found, was that like a natural thing from the MoveNat, or were you kind of getting in some of that and then the MoveNat helped that? Was it kind of similar time?
Yeah, it was pretty similar time. A lot of the stuff that I was doing in terms of movement at the time was based around being able to build a fully robust system, whether it's not just one or the other. I wasn't specifically working on just gaining lean muscle, or I just wanted to be strong everywhere. So I wanted a huge aerobic capacity, and I wanted anaerobic capacity, and I wanted muscle. And Spartan gave us an outlet because of the nature of who I am and who my brothers are. We're pretty competitive, so putting yourself to some sort of test is always nice. And yeah, so it was just one of those, like, yeah, you know what, these Spartans sound pretty cool. Let's see how good we do, because we fancy ourselves as whatever fit. And it punishes you, because and it's very humbling, and I love that about it, because you go out there and you realize how much more fit there are people out there and how much less, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm just me. Me trying to struggle through this, and it fucking sucks, but it's great.
Yeah, man, they're definitely on my, like, I really want to do some like obstacle course type races sometime in the next year. I'm still kind of working through some kind of shitty shoulder injuries from snowboarding times. I've kind of found I dislocated my right shoulder doing the move as I think Fraser actually got it on. Yeah, Fraser got it on video as well in my first season. So doing it check through, and he just kept going back, recording it, rewind it, going, oh, there it is. Oh. So yeah, I've kind of been working through it, but I've kind of just starting now to move better. So I'm kind of hoping that next year is going to be a bit of a next year. I want to do challenges next year, kind of start throwing in some Spartans and some big road runs.
Yeah, I think that's necessary for everybody to do. In my opinion, just anything that you can do that it gives you some form of I guess goal, for lack of a better word, to do. Like, why would I go out and lift a bunch of rocks and go for a run, go for a swim? Why would I do that? I mean, other than to make yourself better in terms of your strength and your health, but like sometimes that's not enough for people. You need that focus. little carrot at the end, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a wonderfully humbling experience when you go out and you go, wow, I just pushed myself to the maximum, and that felt amazing, because we just don't do that really. Right. And particularly with the obstacle courses or the long endurance races, it's kind of like a mini version of life, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's tons of ups and downs. You go through a bunch of emotions. There's struggle. You're feeling great, then you feel crappy, and then you fail at something. Give up. Yeah, and then you get to the end, and you're like, that was totally awesome. And it's over though. But it's over. I should have really enjoyed a little bit more back there. So you're kind of like, I need to actually start being more present. I need to
have you found
enjoy my workouts.
Did you over the races you've done, have you found that there has been an ability to actually enjoy when you're in it a bit more after you've done like the first one, or is it still just as shitty?
No, I enjoy. Actually, it's funny that you asked. The last Spartan that I got to race was my biggest one that I'd raced, and it was a big race. It was, for me, it was it was 25K, and it was lots of obstacles and stuff. It was quite a hot day, and the whole time it was a bit of a sufferfest. The whole time I was just was loving everything. And I was going through this one section of the track. It was one of the most spiritual moments I've ever had. And I was just, when I get into a sort of a possibly lower spot, I just kind of, I returned to that aspect of connecting to nature. And I just said, you know, infinite love and gratitude to my environment and everything that's around me. And this is an amazing experience. I'm having so much joy right now. And then like this summer breeze hit me. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. And then it just kept with me like the whole time. And I was getting goosebumps. I was like, oh my God, this is the best time of my life. And in the middle of this terrible sufferfest where I'd been, you know, punishing myself for over an hour. And yeah, it was totally awesome. I got to the end and I was like, man, I want to do that again, because that was so enjoyable. The whole time was so fun.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Like, so on that, I guess kind of building out from that, and kind of as you've kind of brought up, because I know that even when we were in Canada, I think you were doing a whole bunch of yoga and stuff around that time. But like in your kind of practice and your movement, obviously from my perspective, I kind of look at like nature as being this really spiritual thing. And, you know, that's kind of almost like I'm not a religious person, but I kind of look at a lot of what most religions.
Your church?
Huh? There's my church.
It's the church you go to?
Yeah, I'd say so. Because it's kind of, and I find that most, in my perspective of kind of, I have spent a bit of time reading through religions and stuff, but like, you know, a lot of them, you kind of get down to that point of actually being, there's just a oneness again and again from, you know, and really it comes down to whether you want to call it God or kind of nature. Do you know what I mean? I think you've kind of got mother and father or whatever, but like, yeah, how have you found, like, from, I don't know, perhaps over your life of developing from maniac kind of skater kid to like, you know, outdoorsy, whatever, how have you found like that spiritual side kind of comes in? Because I know obviously some people get weirded out. You even just say the word spirituality and they kind of immediately like freak out and think that you're, I don't know, something.
Yeah.
Weird.
No, totally. I honestly, it's actually, I'll just say it. It's my favorite part of all of this. Since I was a crazy skater kid, for whatever reason, like I've always chased this adrenaline. And, you know, as I started learning more and more about performance and stuff, the aspect of flow came into things. And all of a sudden there was this like tangible doorway for me to and understanding of what I was actually experiencing when I was skateboarding or snowboarding or jumping out of a plane or doing whatever. It was like that real life connection to being in nature. Being in flow is like that connection to nature for me. And so like I love, since I was a kid, I've loved everything to do with fantasy, to magic, and anything that I could get my hands on. I love the Force. The Jedi, like, are you kidding me? That's the best story ever in life. And you know, like, for me to be able to assimilate some of that philosophy in real time and space and in my body and feel it is pretty epic. Like being able to go, hey, you know what? I just felt that. And you can say it's woo woo and that's all good with me, because for me, it's not about anybody else being okay with it. It's just literally me going, this is me. This is real. I love it. And there's no denying that it's happening, because it's happening to me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can't convince people to love spirituality, but it is a spiritual practice to want to be a part of the greater, the bigger, something bigger than you.
And I think, maybe we end up getting quite deep and whatever else with this, but, Jen and I chat about this kind of stuff quite a lot, because we have, even we've started recording them for the podcast, but you kind of realize how when you don't have that, there's a selfishness, if you like, for, a lack of being able to be in the moment, in nature, give a shit about your environment and your nature, give a shit about your neighbors, whatever else. And, you hear people constantly kind of saying, well, even if, you know, religion isn't real, like acting as if God's real kind of makes you a better person. And, you know, I can think,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's morals that are good about all religions. Like there's great lessons
yeah.
to be a better person.
And you can kind of take that and, you know, think being able to find that, as you say, that oneness, that moment when you know, and I've definitely had many moments where you just suddenly feel it and you're kind of like, I am in this right now. Like, this is me. I had a couple, definitely snowboarding, kind of when you just set off on a fresh powder run and you're just kind of like, you're just suddenly there and you're just floating and like there's blue skies and nice sunshine and you just kind of feel like, holy shit, how lucky am I that like I get to be like some kind of sentient thing at this moment, like being able to be in this. And then I don't know, the moments like that for me really make me appreciate kind of just being alive and being around the people who are around me too.
That's what life's all about.
Yeah.
You know, it's reproducing that connection to something that's bigger than you. And I totally 100%. I mean, snowboarding for me is where I connect to it almost, you know, every time I go out. That's why it became a bit of an addiction for me for a long time, is that, you know, I was constantly going out to what I thought it was look cool doing a backflip. Like I want, and there's that part of ego, like you say, and the ego kind of washed over all the spirituality for me for a long time.
Yeah.
Until I started actually realizing that it was like, oh wait, no, this is this connection to something that's a little bit more than me. It's not about me. It's really not about me. It's me. It's about out here and feeling that. And it's why when I built Elemental Body, the tagline that I used was mind, body, spirit, and nature. Nature is what is going to, you know, combine everything. And if you don't have all three of those elements, you can't tap into what is nature, what is our nature.
Yeah.
You can't just do it physically, you know. You can sometimes drop into it just through that
accidental.
You know, yeah, exactly, but you can't constantly tap into it, and that's what I want to achieve.
Yeah, man, that's cool. So I guess in and around that, like you kind of mentioned when you were doing a lot of the sorry, kind of half jumping back a little bit, but when you were doing a lot of the Spartans and you kind of saying, you know, getting, you know, you're wanting the aerobic, anaerobic, etc. So obviously this is kind of obviously move, breathe, live. And I obviously like to chat breathing and stuff. So, you know, with the people that you work with and, you know, even with yourself, and how have you found that, like, especially at the moment, kind of obviously breathing's becoming a very cool thing to
talk
you know,
about.
Yeah, and you know, we kind of, in many ways, we can kind of thank Wim Hof for probably bringing it to most people's attention, even if you know, there's not necessarily that always
not good for everybody.
Not good for everyone. Let's just say that. But yeah, so how have you kind of found perhaps your breathing journey has developed, and even going with that, kind of tying in with the kind of spirituality? Because for me, the breathing's like has been for a while my biggest part of my practice. Like it's just it's something I do when I'm out walking with the dogs and everything, and it really for me is, you know, well, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh and whoever else and all the monks have been basically telling you to just watch your breath and be with nature essentially for however many fucking millennia. But it's a big
surprise.
Yeah. Weird how they were right, eh?
Whoa.
Shit, that dude who basically spent his whole life like breathing was spot on. So yeah, like how's it kind of developed for you, and like even with that spirituality side of things, I guess?
Yeah.
And again, how do you, and again, sorry, just on top of that, like with your clients, how do you then try to help them with it, I guess? You know, how do you try and use it for them to perhaps be able to tap into not just the physical side of this, which a lot of people I find want, they kind of come to do move better, and actually you kind of get them to do some of the breathing, and all of a sudden that spiritual and the nature side can then begin to creep into. That's what I find.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, for the breath, coming from a extremely energetic person that's like bouncing off the walls most of the time, kind of jittery. I got a lot of energy. It was always an issue for me to meditate, to sit. And so when I started doing movement outside, and I guess probably it was likely before that I had an intellectual idea, and I did it in yoga. I was into Ashtanga for a long time, and I tried to understand the breath then, and I think I had an intellectual idea of it. And then when I started sort of moving and breathing outside, I realized that that was how I was really connecting into the moment while things were happening, because it was giving me that sort of into, and then you can go. So your focus is going from way out to way in. And then once you're way in and you're really focused, then you can start expanding again and really feeling things. And for me, I was like, oh, wow, that's neat. Like how can I redo that? How can I tap into that? How can I get better at getting my ass kicked in a Spartan? Because I'm working out a lot. Like I'm putting in a lot of physical effort. And that wasn't my issue. It was taking it back to how my muscles were actually getting oxygen, how I was using my breathing parts, like diaphragmatic breath, I was only intellectually aware of. And then I started to try to do stuff. And it's like when you were talking about that slow process, that's for me, because I'm unlearning most of 35 years. Like I'm 42 now. And by the time I got privy or got into this, it was in my mid 30s, and I was like, I got a lot of work to do, because I got a lot of dysfunction and it takes time. And so it's been this solid rock that needs to be worked on for me. And I think it'll probably be until Forever. I pass from this plane, that solid rock, because it touches every single part of my life. How I interact with my wife, my daughter, my environment outside, how I interact with myself, my physiology. It interacts with every single thing. And it has such an intimate connection that people, it's the sexy thing to talk about right now, but it's so important. That's probably why, people are starting to go, oh shit, really? Man. Yeah. Like I'm talking to a 20-year-old guy that I work with, and I was like, have you ever, thought about how you breathe? And he's a fit dude. Like physically, he's muscular, is what I mean. And fitness for me is not muscles. There's a whole whack of things. And if you can't breathe, you're not fit, right?
Yeah.
And I started doing some breath holds with him, and he was blown away. He's like, how the fuck didn't I learn this? How come I didn't learn how to do this? How come I don't know how to breathe?
It's baffling. Like I spoke to Patrick McEwen, who's the author of Oxygen Advantage, for one of these the other day, and he was saying, because I was talking about it in yoga, and just saying how, in yoga, we're basically, for the most part, especially if you come from an Ashtanga background, you're basically Ujjayi breath, and it's kind of like, loud, kind of strong, kind of, you get that feeling and that sensation. But he was like, it never seems to be taught outside of that, just like the benefits of slowing it down and finding and quietening and, having this whole array of ways in which to breathe to improve your physiology, to help you oxygenate yourself better, and to help you, and it goes on and on and on. And, I went on to say I work with the footballers at Ipswich Town Football Club, and I mean, they are some of the worst breathers I have ever come across.
Yeah.
They are shocking. And,
Hmm.
they're all fit guys. They're professional athletes. They're fit guys who
Yes.
spend every day chasing around. And yet you ask them to hold their breath, or not hold their breath, but just shut their mouth when they're cycling on their fixed bike. And they are a mess within less than
Minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's the only way, but like their one choice gives them no choice. That's all they've got. They can only blow out their ass to
Yeah.
try and survive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's what got me into all of this stuff, is the idea that I would like to make myself better at being me,
Yeah.
or just better at being a human. Because we're going to, throughout life, come into positions where we're stressed, or we need to deal with things like this whole last year has been a very, very good example of why I spend time doing what I do, because I can then come into a situation like this. And do not get me wrong, it was a stressful ass, terribly
Weird
stressful
ass
year.
time.
Weird. But I was able to deal with it a little bit better. I'm not a superhuman, just a little bit better, because I had some foundation in breath, and I knew that my respiratory system was working as good as I could have it working at that time, right? And there's always work to be done, and I'm continuing to work on it. But if you're not working on it, it's not working as good as it can,
No. And so go on. Yeah, sorry.
No. It's like anything. If you leave it, it sort of atrophies, and it gets to this base level of like, okay, you got one gear. This is you. You know, I want to have a little bit more than one gear.
Yeah, and as you exactly as you say, but like, that you were being able to cope with it slightly better, and we've got like both physiologically, so i.e., as you said, it's a respiratory issue. So therefore, if you've got knackered lungs, or you have no ability to move air efficiently throughout your system, and you're perhaps just mouth breathing and you've got no filter, that's obviously one aspect. But then also, it was a weird ass time mentally, to suddenly, I mean, I don't know how you were in Canada, and we were locked down for 5.
Ontario is the most locked down place in all the goddamn world. I'm pretty sure that's actually a statistic. It was fucking crazy. We just came out of lockdown.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, we've been in and out, fortunately. We might be going back in sometime soon. Apparently, there's going to be a third spike. So apparently we might have it. But,
nice.
Yeah. But it's mental that people's ability to then deal with those situations of, and being alone, is a horrible situation. As humans, we're not made to be locked up in a house, on our own. But I can't, and I'm lucky. I've got my wife. I've got 3 dogs that I could, we're allowed to walk. You're allowed to go out and walk your dogs, type thing, throughout lockdown. But I've kind of been working for however long of learning to tolerate stress better, learning to deal with that, the shit which is going to hit the fan and then push you into those places and make you feel worse. I'm trying to constantly work on that side as well as the physical side, so you end up with a slightly fuller resilience again, or as you kind of point out, not necessarily always resilience, but the ability to just sit in it. And
to be okay with it. And what this has taught me more than anything is that I have lots of work to do still. I there's lots of chinks in my armor still, and I worked really hard to get to where I am right now, which is not to discourage people from where anybody is, but I think that's my general nature, is to continue to want to be a little bit better, and to be put into a pressure cooker kind of long-term situation like this. Like you said, mostly mental. I was never really physically worried that, but mentally it's ground down, and even just me and my wife, like me and Chrissy, we just had a baby.
Yeah.
I rebuilt my entire house, like from the ground up. It was the single most stressful year of my life, plus a pandemic or whatever, and it was like, okay, well, some stress resilience to work on still. But if I hadn't been where I was before, I'd probably be way worse off, and I wouldn't want to be,
No. Well, it's, I mean, I've been like listening, and again, kind of, I don't know. I know we've kind of briefly mentioned in some of our chats previously, we'll get in trouble here for chatting COVID and chatting vaccines and whatever else. But, I'm vaccinated because, I'm a nurse and I've kind of been working at the hospital and stuff. And, I'm not against vaccines and whatever else, but I've been listening to some interesting people who seem pretty high up in, the guy who invented the mRNA vaccine and stuff like that. And just, it's pretty interesting, like listening to some of these fairly high up scientists discussing the ways in which things are being done at the moment. And it kind of, there's always you do get the conspiracy theorists and whatever else, but it's the reasons and whys and how fors and whatever else of why things are being done. And it's kind of,
it's easy. I mean, that's one of my pet peeves right now is the term conspiracy theorist, because it's such a blanket bullshit statement for people that are free thinking. And I think it's a healthy thing to think about stuff. And I'm not saying
and be open
for
to
or against anything, but like, come on, you can't just blindly be for everything. And so, that's awesome that you're vaccinated. I haven't been vaccinated yet, but that's not to say I'm against them. I've been fully vaccinated my whole life, but I haven't had the opportunity, and I'm not rushing out to get it, because I do believe that I have a robust system, and I want a little bit more information. That's all. And unfortunately, I'll probably be called a conspiracy theorist.
It is, and it is
that is what it is.
And it's and I've come from my nursing background, and I'm definitely not kind of an anti-vax. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've had all my vaccinations, and I just find it interesting because, it does feel like a lot of the information that we're being told is not, there's a lot of very senior kind of scientists who are basically just saying, hang on, let's just slow down. Again, it's from my perspective, I just want to be able to like be a bit more open-minded about it, and say I'm vaccinated for it now. Like, I had no issues, but I don't really know.
That's awesome.
I don't really know if in the future though, whether, I don't know if anything goes forward in the future, if there would be or not. I know that's what essentially some of these, I was listening to, what's his name? Brett Weinstein talking to a couple of others, and that, these are all like PhD evolutionary biologists and like inventors of vaccines and whatever else. And they're saying, well, it's just, we need to be allowed to look at the science a bit more. And I think that's kind of a bit of a funny place where in this situation, and I don't think it really helps. And again, it just seems to be the way of the world, but it's just, everything's been divided, like left and right, red and blue, whatever else.
And that's for me, that's just, I've come to the understanding, my own self-understanding, that in the last, probably 6 weeks, I just had to be like, you know what? Okay, it's time to go back to me and my wife, my daughter. We're just going to be healthy. We're going to be good individuals. I'm going to care for the human race. I'm going to care for everybody out there. And I'm going to drop all the pretense bullshit that is the narrative. Like, I love and respect anybody's decision to do whatever they choose to do. And I hope that people can do the same for other individuals. And at the end of the day, That's one of the biggest benefits that I've found with this reconnection to my natural environment, is the ability to to bend, to mold, to actually evolve my understanding. Because like the one thing that I know for sure is that I know very little.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I really don't know that much. What I do know is how to, you know, potentially breathe a little bit better, how to move a little bit better, how to sort of give myself the presence and time to be in nature and enjoy what gives us life.
Yeah.
Right. And at the end of the day, the big thing is not COVID right now. It's actually fixing or helping to reintegrate our species with this earth. Like,
Yeah.
we are so incredibly disconnected that this shit can actually happen. Like, this
Yeah.
stuff would not happen. These kinds of, I'm not saying viruses wouldn't happen. I'm saying this polarized separation.
Yeah.
You know, this, we wouldn't be having this discussion if we all knew and understood at a fundamental level that we are all one.
Yeah.
Rolling through space on a big ball, and that ball's what gives us life. You know, if we do not respect the air, you know, the fire, the wind, and the water, if we don't respect the elements that give us life, then it doesn't matter. COVID doesn't matter. No. There's going to be lots of things that kill us.
Yeah.
You know,
but all of them, like, again, the lack of respect for the nature around us is like essentially like COVID's not going to kill us. Like, obviously some people will die, whatever, but like the, you know, it's just World Ocean Day or week, the last week, whatever it was, and do you know what I mean? How quickly the oceans are acidifying and whatever else, and really we can't, I don't know. And again, this exactly what you just said, these last 6 months or 6 weeks, whatever it is like being you and being as the only way any of this stuff improves and we get a better natural environment is by every single person deciding that they're going to stop buying shitty plastic things, and they're going to stop, you know, over, you know, whatever, you know, whichever route it might be. But it's that case of like, I'm actually going to take responsibility for what I do, and that's what I can do. Like, the easiest thing I can do is to be as in touch with myself, to be in touch with my environment as possible.
Exactly. And that's my whole company, Elemental Body, has been built around becoming more aware of our natural environment, so that on a day-to-day basis, I make sure I drink clean, good water. I make sure I'm paying attention to my breath, which externally means what's my air like, what's the air quality like, how is that right now? It's pretty shit, right?
Yeah.
So and then you look at anything else, like the water is we need to start paying attention to these things. It's crazy. The earth, for crying out loud, like our soil is depleting, and there's like hard science that says 65 years maximum with the kind of farming that we're doing right now, and then we don't have any farmable soil. So what the fuck, man? 65 years from now, that's like before. That's crazy.
Hang on, how old am I? I'm 37. My maths is terrible. That's like, I could hit 100. I can hit 100. Yeah, I can hit 100. That's then, basically. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I just, again, I mean, there's a whole rabbit hole to dive down as far as like the regenerative farming, and you see the work that a lot of those, you know, the regenerative farmers are talking about, as far as, you know, using ruminants, using cattle, using, you know, whatever else to actually put back nature into our farming. I mean, I was just at my friends. Yeah, I was at some friends yesterday, and they, you know, they are having to shift their entire farm idea around to be a more regenerative farming thing, because actually the traditional model just isn't work. Yeah, and it's just, the model doesn't work for them. They don't make money without money being given from the government, you know, whatever they're called, like subsidies. So, you know, there's definitely a shift happening, but man, it needs to
It needs a hyper speed. Yeah, absolutely. Man. Well, that's why I was so stoked with what Chrissy decided to do, because she's kind of like, we had a little baby girl, and she's been a couple of years without putting anything really out into the world. She's always helping people because that's just her nature. But with her cooking classes that she's teaching, her whole philosophy is built around regenerative farming and utilizing local sustainable food, so that we can start to rebuild the shit show that it is, our environment.
And you know, just I guess exactly what you said there, that idea of local again, and just being, and I don't know, for me, the ability for me to, like, I walked into, you know, it's like 2 miles or something, 1.5 miles the other day. I walked into the town to do some shopping, and then I, you know, basically lugged it back on my back, had a 15-kilo bag of dog food and whatever else. But like, the ability to rely on local farms and shops and stuff in your area, and like greengrocers, whatever else, all of the crap that we always get told about, oh, you know, we need to stop cutting down the rainforest, but we can't because there's, you know, we're being fed cows and whatever else from that place. Actually, do you know what I mean? If you were to just get all of your veg or your fruit and your like food, like,
and your meat,
yes, exactly, your meat, sorry, seasonally from a local regenerative, like, you could stop cutting down the rainforest for cattle, because you've got to make the choice of whether or not you want to eat a shit bit of meat which is being grain fed and, you know, whatever else, and you don't like any of the ethics behind that, so therefore just stop eating it, and then look at like something local, and you get better environment, you get better animal husbandry, you get better, like,
well, the thing is
economy for the environment, the economy, local economy and stuff.
Everything, you're building everything more sustainably. Like, you look at and there's tons of science behind quality of food, right? A farm fed piece of beef is not the same quality as a grass finished piece of beef. Your body will bioassimilate more nutrients from the grass fed, grass finished. The environment that cattle lived in will take in more carbon because of the nature, the natural cycle, because we are supposed to be in unison with the natural world. We're not trying to fight against it. And that's the one fundamental thing, is like, we have a lot of infighting, and everybody's got their own opinion, but there are some fundamental truths that are just unequivocal. You cannot get around them. They're universal. And if we don't start working in conscious awareness of how that works, then we need to.
We're in trouble.
And the best thing is, you can do it, man. You can do it so easy. Like, people say buying organic is really expensive. Man, I was a snowboard instructor. I don't know if anybody knows out there, but we don't, you know, they don't make a lot of money. But I still chose to make organic choices. I made sure that I was building my body with the best stuff that I could possibly put into it, because what you put in your mouth is sacred, man. And if you're not doing that, then you're not doing yourself justice.
And again, this, you know, we come back to choices, but, you know, my little brother lived in France as a snowboard instructor. He snowboarded. He was never an instructor. He just lived in France for like 4 years snowboarding. But the difference in choices between how the French and, say, how the English certainly live, is that the French will, you know, I can't remember quite what he, this is my brother's quotation, so you can blame him how wrong they are, but like a big chunk, basically, like, you know, 2/3 of their wage is going to go on, like, essentially food. Do you know what I mean? They'll cover their house bills, and then what they've got is like, most of their money will then go on food, because actually food is like essentially a sacred thing. It's the thing which fuels you and powers you. So why would you buy, you know, the really shitty, crappy whatever, when you can potentially eat something which is, you know, been done properly, you know, reared properly or grown properly, healthier for the planet, healthier for yourself, and you know, they've got no problem spending more money on their food than they would on buying shit that they don't actually need. And it kind of always stuck with me of like, really kind of, yeah, just splash out a little bit more and just get some.
You can't afford not to.
Yeah.
If you, and that was one thing that Cedar, like having a kid, like exclamation mark, you cannot afford to not make the right moral decision in terms of what's best for the environment. Because and I saw a really neat quote, and I'm probably gonna fuck it up, but it was a Native American quote, and it was we're not, oh no, how would it go? I'm not even gonna try it. It's something like
just it goes something
it goes something like this. We're essentially borrowing the earth from our children, right?
Yes.
And that's I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. It's so true. Like, we are borrowing this because when we're gone, they got to live with what we did.
Yeah.
And we're living with our past generations, and you know, things are catching up. So and not doom and gloom. You can make really good decisions, and you can become a healthy, amazing individual if you just start making decisions that are in line with our natural world. That's all you got to do. It's really easy. And I know you're making those decisions with what you're doing and how you're coaching, and that's what I'm doing, and that's what my wife's doing. And there's a whole hell of a lot of people out there that are doing that, and you can make the decision to do that, and it doesn't take anything. It's really easy. You just have to have some awareness of how your natural world is affecting you, and then it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh God, I love this place. This place called Earth is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I can't believe we've basically just chatted for an hour. I mean, I'm pretty certain we could probably carry on rambling around this for a fair while. But we'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
But before we do finish, as is always the case, I mean, you've kind of given a fair few decent little ideas of what people can try and do. But if you were to try and give someone a bit of a takeout from your experience, your job, your background, your company, whatever, from what we chatted about, whatever, just a simple something that someone can take out and perhaps try and put into their life daily, what would that be?
I would say drink clean water and figure out what that is. Okay, drink clean water, figure out what that is. Breathe through your nose. Just try it. Move, doesn't matter what, move around, move outside, take your feet off, put it on the ground. And then with your entire environment, what you put in your mouth, have an idea where it came from. Just an idea.
Yeah.
Start with those 4 things. Just an idea of what you put in your mouth.
Yeah.
Breathe through your nose. Just try it. Drink clean water, right? And make sure you're moving outside. Take your feet off. Take your shoes off your feet.
Yeah. Nice. I mean, you can see the state of those fuckers.
I love it.
For those of you who are just listening, I just put my my feet up to the camera, and I've been barefoot for the last I don't know, 2.5 months or something. So they're a bit dirty.
They're dirty as shit.
Yeah, man.
I love it. It looks good. It's a good look.
Cheers, fella. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing this. That was an absolute pleasure to have you on. And I will obviously put everything in the show notes, but can you just briefly give us a roundup? If people want to find you, people want to come train with you, people want to see what you're doing, where should they find you?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram at James Elemental Body. And then I have a website, elementalbody.ca. And those are kind of the 2 places that I'm most active. I'm a little bit on Facebook, but it's mostly the Insta and website.
Website, cool. And I'll put Chrissy's on there as well. I'll put her Instagram on there so people can find her, and just
awesome.
If they want it, again, between the 2 of you, there's some nutrition stuff, and there's a bit like what Jen and I are trying to do. But yeah, they can dig you guys up for sure.
Yeah, my wife is amazing. Just gotta say,
rad. She's freaking rad.
Yeah. So is yours, and I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get to meet her. By the way,
hang on, Jen. Hang on. Wait there. And in fact, we'll do this in a minute. We'll finish the conversation, and I'll go and get her. That'll be better than just hanging around with someone on the air. Right. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, brother.
It's an absolute pleasure. We shall do this again soon. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, bro.
Cheers, bud.